Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Friday the 18th of October. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Cisco has patched high-severity vulnerabilities in analog telephone adapters. Do you know people still use analog telephones? I didn't know people still used analog telephones, but there we are. Actually, that's not true. I've got a very nice 1940s Bakelite telephone downstairs on the living room on the side table, but there we are. And it works. CVE 2024-20458. And it is a vulnerability in the web management interface of the firmware of ATA 190 series analog telephone adapters. There's also a vulnerability CVE 2024-20421 in the same device. So the first one bug exists because endpoints lack authentication, allowing remote unauthenticated attackers to browse to specific URLs, view or delete configurations, or modify the firmware. The second vulnerability allows remote unauthenticated attackers to conduct CSRF attacks and execute arbitrary actions using a specially crafted link. There we are. So yeah, if you are using these devices, if you've still got analog telephony going on over your network, then take a look at this and patch. F5 Big IP updates have been released, patching high severity elevation of privilege, and a high severity elevation of privilege vulnerability. Vulnerabilities in Big IP, there's a high severity vulnerability in Big IP and a medium severity bug in Big IQ, both of which have been patched. The Big IP vulnerability is CVE 2024-45844, and it affects the appliances monitor functionality and could allow authenticated attackers to elevate privileges and make configuration changes. So that's been fixed in version 17.1.1.4, 16.1.5, and 15.1.10.5. So the vulnerabilities are have got patches available for them if you're using Big IP or Big IQ. Big IQ is centralized management. There are patches available. In fairness, if you're using that sort of stuff, you're probably, hopefully, on top of the processes around patch management and vulnerability management anyway, because Big IP stuff is not F5 stuff is not cheap and cheerful. Find it everywhere. It tends to be quite enterprise-like. Very cool kit if you can afford it and if you've got a need. But yeah, just worth pointing out, those vulnerabilities have been patched. As we were saying yesterday, the average time between vulnerability discovery and exploit is now down to a few days. So it is worth keeping on top of this stuff if you possibly can. There is a campaign at the moment pushing out fake Google Meet conference links which spawn an error, and via fake error, by the way, via the recommended actions to deal with the error introduces info-stealing malware. So it's what's called a click fix social engineering tactic, which has been I mean, the concept's been around for a long time, but it's become a little more sophisticated. And I think the first big malware campaign using this as an approach was earlier this year, some point in spring this year. The way this works is you, through the usual means, you lure users to a fraudulent Google Meet conference page, which shows purports to show connectivity errors with a potential fix. The fix is for the victim to copy a piece of PowerShell code to the clipboard and then run it using Windows Command Prompt. The PowerShell code then downloads an info stealer. Various bits of malware have been seen to be downloaded this way. So yeah, in fact, pretty well it can pretty much download anything that you want. So there is a good write-up in Bleeping Computer that sets out the timeline of the evolution of ClickFix vulnerability, or ClickFix malware phishing attacks, and gives some indication of what the also gives some indication of what the screenshots look like that you will get. They don't actually give you the right, just so it's clear, they give you a button that says copy the fix or fix it, or press, highlight this, press Control V, that kind of thing. So it is a little more sophisticated than just here's some code, please run this code. So it does look like it could be legitimate. The meeting links are using lookalike domains, things like meet.google.us-join.com or meet.google.web-join.com and that sort of thing. So they do, at first glance, look reasonably realistic. So it's one to be aware of. Ideally, if you get into a situation where this stuff has not been caught through your mail gateway and email protection solution, you would hope that you would have some controls on connections, outbound connections, which invariably these things, if they're going to pull down malware from somewhere, hopefully you've got some controls over where people can browse out to. If you use it, the cloud services in this space are very good these days. The one I know best is probably Zscaler, but there are lots of others, and we don't recommend any particular products. But this sort of thing, I mean, these cloud-based services can provide a lot of protection in this space. Hopefully you've got that and it'll catch it. If the worst comes to the worst, hopefully your endpoint protection will catch the the malware if it does actually get downloaded. Also, where there are indicators of compromise or indicators of attack, you should check to make sure that those things are flagging in your security visibility tooling. So there should be at least an alert if there's a DNS lookup to any of the 4 domains, at least, that are mentioned in this article. And then finally from me today, and finally for this week, just a little bit of an update. If one of the things that concerns me is the way in which biometric data is being stored and used, and for all sorts of reasons, not just authentication or identification of people, but various reasons why this stuff is now becoming much more commonly digitized. Well, one area which is very much in that arena is around DNA sequencing. Um, Other than irradiating yourself, you can't really do much to change your DNA. So it's fascinating to get your DNA profiles assessed by these ancestry type sites. 23andMe being one of the most popular US based, one of the most popular um, suppliers, vendors, whatever, service providers in this area, about 14 million customers. 23andMe is in trouble at the moment. They, as you may recall, um, earlier this year, I think, no, December last year, an attacker was able to access some accounts, some user accounts, and walk off with data. Now, the data includes, well, yes, okay, obviously it's sequences, but also all sorts of medical information that might be related, and information about your relatives, if your relatives have also used 23andMe. Consequently, 23andMe are in trouble. The board resigned, with the exception of the CEO, who is looking to take the company private, or has taken the company private. Again, there is the possibility it's going to go bankrupt. There is also the possibility that it will just get bought up. Raises questions around what happens to your data under these circumstances. Well, for clarification, in case you didn't read the T's and C's, they will delete your account, but they won't delete your genetic data. So basically, in order for them to remain compliant with certain legal obligations, including federal clinical laboratory rules and California business and professions codes, blah blah blah. There are various US regulations that mean that they need to keep your genetic data. Also, if your genetic data has been used, if you've given consent for data to be used in research, and your data has been used in research, that your data will then not be deleted. You may, by deleting your account, you may prevent the data from being used in further research, but you can't remove it from existing research. Kind of obvious, but you're probably not thinking about it at the time. So just to be aware, once you have given your data to an organization, it is very difficult, if not nigh on impossible, to control what actually happens to it after that. You can't change biometric data about yourself, and you absolutely can't change DNA sequence data about yourself. So once this stuff has been made publicly available, there is nothing that you can do about it. So just be aware of that, and just be mindful if you are going to give your genetic information to commercial organisations. Go into that with your eyes open. If the benefits to you outweigh the risks of something happening, or your data being released, then if the benefits outweigh the risks, all well and good, but make sure you're informed about the risks would be my recommendation. Anyway, that's enough from me.